Hello, and welcome to Sobercast. We provide AA speaker meetings and workshops in a podcast format. We are an ad-free podcast, and if you enjoy listening, please help us be self-supporting by visiting Sobercast.com, look for the donate link, and drop $1 or $2 into the virtual basket. Also, if you're a member of NA or have friends that are, please tell them about our other podcast, NAPOD. NAPOD features NA speakers and workshops in the same format as Sobercast. We upload a new speaker every day, and it's easy to subscribe by searching for NAPOD, N-A-P-O-D, all one word, on any podcast player app, or go to napod.xyz if you'd like to listen online. Hope you enjoy the podcast and have a great day.
Still double fisting. Hi everybody, my name's Annie. I'm an alcoholic. My sobriety date is March 1st, 2006. I have a sponsor. I sponsor others. I have a home group. It's the Tampa Bay Young People's Group, and they meet, about 45 minutes ago over in Tampa. We're actually moving. This is our last night in our church. So we're moving to 500 West Platte Street. It's just right around the corner. So if you want information on how to get to that meeting, you can see me afterwards. And I just got nervous. And it always happens. I remember asking Dick Drysdale. He's got 39 years, I think. I said, does that ever go away? And he said, no. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, I know that that's normal then. So I guess first I want to say that I love Alcoholics Anonymous. And it saved my life. I'm 27 years old. I came here when I was 24. And I really didn't know that I had a problem with alcohol. I knew that I drank a lot, but I thought that the way that my life was just kind of like bad luck, or I was just going to have rough times, and I really had no idea that the way I was living was as a result of the way I used alcohol and other things. But, I'm not really going to talk much about that because alcohol is what brought me here. So, I guess I'm going to try to just briefly tell you about the drinking and stuff like that. I think that if you're here, you probably know what got me here, and just tell you a little bit about, what was going on and how I got here. But, welcome to all the newcomers. They always say, stay until the miracle happens, and I didn't really know what that miracle was. They've been coming since I got here, and at first it was that I drank, and then I didn't drink for one day, and then it was for 30 days, and then it was 60 days and 90 days, and that was a miracle. And it was that I could wake up in the morning and I didn't feel bad, and I could call my mom, and I could talk to her, and I could tell her about the stuff I did the night before and not have to worry about lying or hiding, and it felt really good, and it was a miracle that I woke up in my apartment every day by myself, knowing what I'd done the night before. Those were the miracles that happened when I first got here. And the longer you stay, the bigger the miracles get. Just today, I took my car in on Monday to get a diagnosis done on it, because I kind of come to this crossroads with my car. Do I want a new car? Really can't afford a new car, but I can't afford the maintenance and blah, blah, blah. So I get a call yesterday, and the guy calls me and tells me that it needs about $3,000 worth of work. And I said, okay. So, I called my parents, and I said, I think I'm just gonna charge it. I said, I think it needs to be done, and, I need to take care of it. And my mom said, your dad and I are going to pay for it. And now, because you don't know my parents, you're not as shocked as I was, but that's just not something that happens. That's just not something that happens for me. It was huge, and it was, she told me it was going to be my wedding gift, and I'm not married yet, so even better. So, anyway, back to beginning. I grew up in St. Louis, Missouri. My parents are still married, gave me everything I ever needed. We weren't, beyond our means or anything like that, but I didn't want for anything, and they gave me no reason to drink the way I did or to do the stuff that I did. And for a long time, they didn't know that I drank the way I did. I think I took my first drink around 13 or 14. I know a lot of people say that alcoholics remember their first drink like it was yesterday. I don't. I know that I was babysitting, and there were 2 different babysitting occasions. One time it was the person I was babysitting for gave me the alcohol and said, here, you can have these Zimas. And I said, okay. So the result of that was me and my girlfriend that were babysitting, we ended up jumping off the balcony in his house onto the couch and breaking the couch. And that was the consequences of that were, I think you broke my couch. And I said, I think it was your children. And the other time was that I was babysitting, and I came across the liquor that these people had under their kitchen sink. And I was by myself. The kids were sleeping, and I decided to drink. And then I called my girlfriend, and I was like, come get this liquor. So I packed up all the liquor, put it behind the house. She came and picked it up, and I don't remember. They just never asked me to babysit again, and neither did anyone else. So not sure if that was because I didn't want to babysit anymore because I was drinking now or what. But I really didn't start drinking until I was like 16, I guess. And I remember vividly waking up on my 17th birthday, having drank a 5th of tequila the night before and thinking I was going to die. And it did not cross my mind that I would never drink again or that I shouldn't drink. I just thought, oh, God, I shouldn't drink tequila like in that quantity. And I did. I still did. And I really don't know why I did that. People talk about not fitting in and stuff like that. I do remember just wanting always to just blend in with people. I didn't want to stand out. I didn't want to be unnoticed. But I just wanted to look like everybody else. And I really think that has it's worked in my favor at times. And at the same time, that was a huge reason for my drinking, is that I just did what you did. I did what made you happy. I did what made me fit in with you guys. And I guess there were people that didn't drink. I guess, but I liked the way I felt when I drank. And I don't remember when I started blacking out, but it wasn't too long after I started drinking. So I graduated from high school. I graduated with a 4.0. I went to college. I got to college, stayed in a dorm, and I could only stay there about 3 months because you had to have these cards to get in the dorms, and a lot of times I was too drunk to get in the dorms, or I wanted people to come in with me and they couldn't, or whatever. So I manipulated my way out of that situation, and I moved into a house, and from the time I walked through the doors of the university, I found people that drank, and it was sororities and fraternities, and not everybody in the sorority and the fraternity drank like I did, but there were definitely people that did. So I thought I was really cool because I could drink all night long, and I could stay up all night long and party with the best of them, and I thought that was something that was cool. So I really didn't start getting any consequences until, what happened was drinking became more important than everything else. I gradually stopped going to class. If I was on my way to class and somebody was going somewhere else to do something else, I was with them. It just became, the things that were important became less important. Alcohol definitely took precedence over everything else in my life. About 3 years after I started school, I was down to part-time. I was barely going, so I quit. And I was working in a restaurant. So I found a lot of people that did a lot of the same stuff I did. And things were still fun at this point. I was having a good time. I'd go to work, we'd get off work, we'd go to the bar, we'd drink all night, and then we'd sleep all day, and then go to work, and the same thing over and over again. I eventually got a DUI. I got pulled over for a speeding ticket, and then I got a DUI because of that. And so at the time, it was not because of my drinking. It was because I had a warrant for my arrest for a speeding ticket I didn't pay. So that was the first time I got locked up. And I was 20 years old, and I didn't call my parents because my parents were actually moving from St. Louis to the Keys, while I was being locked up. At the very moment. So I didn't even know how to get a hold of them. And I don't think I would have called them anyway because they did not know what I was up to. They didn't know. The one thing that they ever found out is that there was one time while I was in college that I drank so much at a baseball game that I got dehydrated. I must have had alcohol poisoning, but I wouldn't know that by the time I got to the hospital. It was all gone. But and I told them I'd never do that again, and that was it. But that was the only thing they knew. So I didn't tell them, but a couple of weeks after I got that DUI, I decided to go visit them in the Keys. And when I got there, I was like, oh my God, like I can do what I'm doing up there down here, and it's so much prettier than St. Louis. So I went home, and as quickly as I could, packed up all my stuff, got rid of my apartment. 5 weeks later, I'm living in the Keys. If anybody's ever been to the Keys, it's 2 roads, and there's bar. They call it a quaint little drinking village with a big fishing problem. So that's where I lived. I lived in Isla Mirada. I stayed, I got a job at this resort. I stayed in their staff housing. So I was living with a lot of really transient people and people that were just there to either run or they were only there for a short while. So our regular day looked like I went to work at 5 o'clock, got off at 11 o'clock. The bars are open till 4. So we stayed till 4 or 5 or 6, depending on who you knew, and or maybe earlier or later, however you want to look at that. And then slept all day, went to work, and that started to catch up with me. I would shake so bad I couldn't pour wine. I worked in this fine dining restaurant, and at first I didn't know I was shaking. I would get to work, and I would just be like, I just couldn't, and I didn't understand it. But I did know that when I went to the bar after work, and I got a couple shots in me, that I stopped shaking. So I found the solution. So I had to keep that alcohol in me so that I didn't shake. But I couldn't always do that. So I eventually lost my job, and I lost my housing. So rather than call my parents that are 10 minutes down the road and ask them if I can stay with them for a while, I decide to pack it up and go live in a house somewhere for a couple weeks. And then I didn't want those people to know what I was up to all the time, so it eventually became that I would go to the bar at night to find a place to sleep. Sometimes I knew who it was with, sometimes I didn't know who it was with. Sometimes I woke up in a place I knew, sometimes I didn't. A lot of things happened during that period of time that happened to people that don't have a place to live. And I really just didn't care. I just didn't care. I just needed to be able to get back to the bar to drink. And, I was able to get jobs and keep them for, some amounts of time. But what happened was eventually my kidneys started to hurt, and I knew that it was because of the way I was treating my body. I knew it was because I was drinking too much vodka. So I knew that if I went to the hospital with this problem, that people would know that I was drinking the way I was drinking, and then the gig would be up. So rather than tell anybody, I went to the first couch I slept on, stayed there for 3 days, detoxed, sweat, shook, cried, didn't sleep. The most awful couple of days of my life. I don't even remember how long that lasted, but at some point, and I now know restless, irritable, and discontent. That is exactly what I was, laying on that couch. Somebody'd walk in the house and I'd want to rip their head off. Somebody would walk in that house drunk and I'd want to kill them. So eventually I said, screw you all, I'm going to a hotel. So I stayed in a hotel for a couple of days, and I started to feel better. So I thought, okay, vodka is evil. Don't drink vodka. And I really relate to more about alcoholism, and I truly believe that is what sold me on the fact that I'm an alcoholic. I did all of that. I said, no more vodka, I'll just drink beer. Okay, well, beer wasn't doing it for me, so I'll just drink beer and shots. And then sometimes I'd just drink wine, and then sometimes that didn't work, so I eventually was like, screw it, give me vodka. And, I just back and forth. And I eventually, by controlling my drinking a little bit, I got some stuff. I got a place to live. I got a pretty decent job at a restaurant, managing this restaurant. And I got my stuff together, so I thought. And then I got into this really crappy roommate situation, and I ended up, my parents were begging me to come home. By the time I got back to my parents' house, I couldn't speak in full sentences. I could not put a sentence together because so much had happened, and I couldn't tell them everything, but I needed them to know that some things had happened and that there were some things going on, and the reason that I couldn't put it together. And my mom got out the blue pages because she didn't know what the hell to do with me, and was trying to call counselors and all this stuff, and I was just like, don't. I don't want it. I don't need it. Just don't. I'm okay. I'm going to be okay. So it's very easy to do like a geographical cure down there because you just move islands and it's like 10 minutes. So I just moved to the next island and go and work with all new people, and eventually I'm doing the same stuff over again. I found the same people, was doing the same thing, eventually found a boyfriend, which was, always a good escape for me, somebody to babysit me and take care of me. And at some point, our drinking and using, more so mine, we decided that the Keys was just a really bad place to be. So, back up a little bit, I got another DUI while I was down in the Keys. So, that's just what happens. It was shortly after I was controlling my drinking and shortly after I wasn't really drinking. And I think the first night I went back out to go to one of those bars that I used to hang out with, I fell asleep, passed out, blacked out. I'm not sure what happened while I was driving on US 1 with water on both sides of me, and I hit a car that was in front of me and came to and ended up getting locked up again that night for a second time. I swore I wasn't drunk. I swore I'd only had one drink, but I refused to blow because I didn't want them to have evidence. So anyway, went through all that stuff, spent a lot of money trying to get myself out of that situation, and again, like I said, we ended up, me and this guy decided that we were going to move to Tampa. Is kind of how we picked Tampa. So we moved up to Tampa, found a place to live, and when we got here, I decided it wasn't our drinking, it was him. I didn't like him. That's why I was crazy. And so I got a job. I moved and got my own place. So I've got my own place. I'm paying for all my own stuff. I'm not asking anybody for help. I'm working in a restaurant. And I'm doing the same stuff I've always done, but I'm doing it by myself. And I got nobody to watch after me. And, countless nights I'm walking out trying to find my car and I'm like, where did I park last night? Did I drive home last night? How did I get here? And all over again. Can't tell you how many times I lost my truck in the Keys, and I would just have to drive up and down US 1 because there was no side street, so I could find it really easy. But in Tampa, it's a little different when you lose your car. So I'm working for this restaurant, and there's like this series of events that goes down over like a 6-month period of time where, I hurt my knee at work. And so I had this brace, and I was limping, and my bird died because I left him outside and it was too cold because I was drunk. And I was supposed to go see my parents at Christmas time, and the night before I decided to stay up all night drinking wine. So when I woke up in the morning, I had missed the trip down there. And like I said, all this stuff was not because of my drinking. It was just, really bad luck. And on my last really bad drunk, my cat pushed the screen out of my bedroom window and took off. And not until after I got sober did I realize, he was pissed. I was drunk all the time, I did not take care of my child, and he left me. So he was gone. And so my boss at the restaurant, who was a friend of mine too, who I had partied with, sat me down and said, Annie, we know you're drinking at work. We know I think you have a problem. And he said, you can either get some help and quit drinking, not just here, but quit drinking, or you can just take your journey somewhere else. And I said, I'll think about it. So because I'd had this thing for so long where I hadn't asked anybody for help, and I didn't need any help, and I didn't need your money because I was scared to death if I asked you for help, you were going to be able to tell me what to do. So I had rent due the next week, and I was like, I can't get a new job and pay rent by next Wednesday. So I guess I'll go to AA, because he said something about AA to me. And I didn't really know anything about treatment or AA or anything. I for whatever reason, knew nothing about it. So I called the 800 number that's in the blue pages in the phone book, And somebody answered the phone, and I told him where I lived, and there was a meeting right across the street from my house. Like, Club 3333 is literally like a stone's throw away from my house. I had no idea what that place was. So, and I'm thinking there's only going to be like one meeting in Tampa, and it's going to be like a week from today, and that wasn't the case. So anyway, I go to a Tuesday noon meeting at 3333, and if you've ever been to that meeting, you would know that it is wall-to-wall old-timers, and I'm sitting in this really foreign place. I have no idea what's going on. I just know I have to be there to keep my job, and everybody goes around the room, and they introduce themselves with their sobriety date. And this guy says something about 1976, and I'm like, what is he doing here? I'm like, it's 30 years later. I don't think you're going to drink, It just blew my mind that people were 30 years down the road still sitting in these meetings. And I was like, well, something's really wrong with him. Now I know that nothing's really wrong with him at all. He's just an alcoholic. So, I picked up a white chip that day because everybody in the room stared at me when it was time to pick up the chip. So I picked up a white chip, and I called my boss, and I was like, I picked up a white chip, and he has no idea what the hell that is. And he's like, so do you need a sponsor? Like, he's trying to sponsor me. And now I look and I read to the employers, and I swear he has read that. But I know that because he asked me if I needed a sponsor, he hasn't read that. But by the book. That's what happened, is that, he knew I had a problem. He came to me in the most gentle manner and said, you can either get some help or you gotta go. And no one up until this point, not my mother, not my boyfriend, not my brother, not my father, nobody could have told me I had a drinking problem and I would have done something about it. Nobody. And I know today that this man was put in my life by God. I didn't know it at the time. I didn't know anything about God at the time. I had no concept, never went to church, never read the Bible. I had no concept of God. It wasn't that I didn't believe that there was something maybe out there, but I just didn't know what it was or how it was specific to me or worked in my life. Nothing. I knew nothing. And, speaking of the miracles, for me, that's been my miracle. That has been my miracle, is finding a God of my understanding. And turning my will and my life over to this thing I can't see, feel, or touch every day in my life, and things work out. I don't know how that works. I just know that it does. And I'm telling you this based on my experience. Not because the big book says it, not because your sponsor says it, because it's been my experience. That this is what happens when we come to AA. We do the right things. We just try to believe, and it works. So anyway, there was 2 young girls in that first meeting I went to. They told me about the Tampa Young People's Group. For whatever reason, I said, okay, I'll meet you. And I met one of the girls, and I went to the Young People's Group. And it was overwhelming. There's like 150 people my age and younger that are sober, and I did not believe they were sober. I was like, there is no way that all these people are sober. And they are. So the beginning it's blurry for me. It wasn't me. I know that it wasn't me that kept going to these meetings. The only thing that I know, I remember that this girl kept asking me if I had a sponsor, and I kept telling her no, and finally I said, what, do you want to sponsor me? And she said, okay. So she kind of asked me what my plans were, because they were telling me to go to 90 meetings in 90 days, and I was like, you don't understand. I have stuff to do, and if I can make it, I'll make it, and if I can't, I can't. My boss tells me I only have to go to 1 a week, so I really fought that 90 and 90 thing. And then none of my, I thought I was going to be hanging out with my friends and stuff, and then I didn't have any more friends because they didn't like me no more because I didn't drink with them. So I would get these phone calls every now and then from the people that were my friends, and they'd be like, hey, you still sober? And I'd be like, yeah. And they'd be like, all right, catch you later. And that was it. So it became like I was still working in this restaurant, and it was hard. It was so hard. It was all I knew. I knew to go to work and to work while I was there and then get off work and drink, And by the time I had gotten to Tampa, my world had become so small that I really only drank at the restaurant I worked for and maybe this little bar down the street. And I didn't know anybody but the people I worked with and a couple of people at this little bar down the street. My world was like this. And so I started going to meetings after I got off work at the restaurant. I would get off at like 9:30, 10 o'clock, and there's a club over in Tampa that has 11 o'clock meetings, and those 12 o'clock meetings, I know what that's about, you know. I lived by myself and I didn't want to go home. I could not stand to sit in my skin, and I could not sleep. So I would go to these meetings and then just hang out with the people afterwards. Like, sometimes they would go to the Village Inn, and sometimes they would bring guitars and play guitars outside, and, you know, I just stuck to these people because I had nowhere else to go, and I knew I just didn't want to go home, and I couldn't drink. I knew I couldn't drink. By this time, I'd read the big book, and I knew I was an alcoholic, and I knew that by having read that book, it, you know, like, my story, you know, like, I didn't have this awful bottom, but I'd been some really ugly places, and I knew that, like I told you before, I was waking up in the morning and I didn't feel like crap. And I knew what I did the night before, and that stuff I hung on to with my life, you know, like that. I knew that if I stayed here, it would get better. I don't know how I knew that. And maybe it was the people telling me keep coming back. That could have been it. But a big thing that happened was, I believe it was somewhere in the neighborhood of like 8 days after I got sober. I came home from a meeting, and my cat had been gone 11 days. And I was on the phone with someone, and I heard meow, and I was like, and my cat was in this like electrical closet on the side of a building that I had checked hundreds of times, it seems like. And I was like, oh, this is what happens when you stay sober. The cat comes home. Like they're right. You get your stuff back. And I know it's funny, but I swear to you, that was the first time that I like stood with my cat in my parking lot, and I was like, all right. This is weird, but okay, you know, like, so, that's kind of where my God I started to acknowledge God. But, anyway, so I got a sponsor. I started to work the steps, and I tell you what, I did not understand the big book. I graduated with a 4.0, but I did not understand the big book. I understood parts of it, where it was talking about like my drinking and stuff, but I didn't know about the God thing. I didn't know about God's will or self-will. I didn't understand it, and I couldn't understand why I couldn't understand it. But I went ahead and I did the work anyway. Because of those little things that were so good at the time, I did the work anyway. And I didn't understand the third step prayer. And my sponsor would tell me to do the third step prayer, and I would do it at night. I wasn't praying in the morning at night. I was praying at night. And then for a while it was on my back. And then eventually somebody told me that it was very different if you got down on your knees. So I thought, well, I'll try it. But I didn't know who I was praying to or what I was praying to or what I was saying. And so when I heard the third step prayer, I was like, ooh, I have something to say. I didn't know what I was saying. I didn't know what it meant. And eventually, from going to meetings and listening to speakers and listening to open discussion meetings, somebody finally explained to me what it meant. And it made sense. I can't tell you when, like, the big spark came where I believed in God, but I did a fourth and fifth step, and it was like an 8-hour day of talking about all this crap. I thought I was going into this fifth step to figure out how to not be pissed off at these people anymore, and found out that it was probably my fault that I was pissed at them anyway. So I remember feeling like after I did my fifth step, like I was totally aware. Like I started to see who I was, and I wasn't the sweet little girl I thought, you know, like I thought I was. Like in the big book it talks about overall pretty nice person except for when it came to drinking, and that was sort of true, but I used people. I took from people. I didn't know that. I didn't know that I affected people with my drinking. I thought as long as I don't ask your opinion, then it doesn't matter. You know, as long as I don't ask you for your money, then it doesn't matter. Stay out of my face, stay out of my life. If you don't like my drinking, don't look at me, you know. And I just never saw that stuff until after I did a fourth and fifth step. So, you know, I did the rest of my steps, and at some point in there, like I said, I started to become more aware of, like, who I was and the way I acted and my motives for things. And it was ugly at first, but like, the cool part about that is that when I notice it, I get to start trying to change it. And I didn't know that I couldn't change myself, but it made sense to me that every decision I had made up until the time I walked into Alcoholics Anonymous got me in some really ugly situations. So I could ask my sponsor, about things. And so I could trust my sponsor. And I really believe that the job of a sponsor is to take us through the steps and to lead us to God. I think that's what it's about. And eventually, like I said, I started to talk to God. I started to be more vigilant about praying in the morning and praying at night. And things started to happen, I never thought I would get out of the restaurant business. I just didn't know what else I was going to do or where I was going to go. And I was sitting in Village Inn one night after a meeting, and I was looking through a paper for a job, and somebody was like, are you looking for a job? And I said, yeah. And they said, here, come into this company. It's my company. We're looking for people. And it was a mortgage company. And I was like, I don't know anything about mortgages. They're like, that's okay, we'll teach you. So I got into mortgages when it was good. I think that maybe the reason that it's bad now is because I thought it was good then. But I learned this new thing, and I made some money, and I eventually ended up I was able to work for myself, and that was an experience. Try to be accountable to yourself. It's a little bit different than, meeting your sponsor for step work, because you're the only one that shows up, and you're the only one that knows if you don't show up. So that was an experience that I've gotten to do again. But miracles, I just never thought I would leave the restaurant business, ever. So along the way, I started sponsoring girls pretty early on. Pretty much right after I finished my steps, I started sponsoring girls. And that was interesting in the beginning. I was very easily manipulated by these people. They'd be like, can we read down to this line, and then when it has a comma, then I'll start reading, and then when it has a comma again, you'll start reading? And I was like, sure. That's probably not the way you should read the big book with your sponsor. But, just weird stuff like that. And, and I really was scared that if I didn't do it right, that they were going to drink and I was going to kill them. And, I found out that I'm really not responsible for anyone's life here except for my own. And the best thing that has come from working the steps is that I'll be reading the book with someone new, and I'll come across something that, has been there the whole time, and I've read it over and over again, but I get it. Now I get it, and I don't want to show them that I'm just now getting it for the first time. So I start talking to them and this, but that's what's helped me to get the big book, get it and love it and believe it. I believe every word in that book with every ounce of me, everything. I believe everything in that book. I don't believe it helps just my alcoholism. I believe it helps me live my life. It has all the answers, all the answers. How to find God, how to be rid of resentment, how to have a conversation, how to communicate, how to help a newcomer. I mean, it's just, those are the tools I need to live today. I've had the opportunity to sponsor a lot of women, and every single time I did the 1, 2, 3 tango with a lot of girls, and then eventually I got to do a 4th step with somebody and a 5th step, and it was awesome. She's reading me her stuff, and a lot of the stuff I'm like, oh yeah, me too, yeah, I did that too. Some stuff I was like, whoa, I didn't do that, but that's okay because I did this, and I saw this girl come in. She came out of treatment. She was crazy and broken, and I have seen, she's like a butterfly. I mean, she is literally just completely, I've seen her relationships with people change. I've seen her relationship with herself change. I love this girl. I love this girl. I've seen her go to school and graduate with honors. The only one in her class to do that. I've seen her just become what Alcoholics Anonymous makes us, and that's people that can function in society and do really well and not have to drink, and I've gotten to experience some things with her that I think a lot of us would have drank over, And that's just been a huge miracle. I've done, a couple more fifth steps since then, and every time it is truly amazing to sit down with somebody and have them tell you everything, to be that person that somebody is going to trust with everything, and when they call me and they ask me something and I don't know, I can tell them I don't know. I can tell them I don't know, and I got to call Brenda. Brenda's my sponsor. And that's a good thing, because I don't know it all. But when I don't know it all, that means that I'm still teachable and I still will learn, And service has also been a huge part of my sobriety. As soon as I came in, and I think it's really what stuck me here, what kept me here in the beginning, was that I was nominated and voted into, so I was basically shoved into the secretary's position at my home group, and it was nerve-wracking every time before I got up to do the secretary's report. I thought I was going to collapse while I was up there, and it was just awful. And I did that for 6 months, and then I started chairing a women's meeting, and eventually I got my PV, and I take meetings to jail every Tuesday. I've gotten involved with Circuit Paw when we had it here 2 years ago. I've been to New Orleans for Icky Paw. I've been to a couple Ficky Paws. These are just, places to go and recharge your AA batteries, because I know that coming here sometimes gets monotonous. You go to the same meetings, you hear the same things, and I've been told that if you go to a meeting and you don't like what the meeting has, bring to the meeting what you want to hear at the meeting. So either that or get the hell out of the meeting and go some other meeting, And so, I've really gotten to experience a lot of AA. And there was a point that probably just around a year, I was tired of going to my home group. And, I called my sponsor and I said, I don't feel like going there, And she said, Annie, do you believe that your home group saved your life or helped to save your life? And I said, yes. And she said, it's not about you anymore. She said, you go to your home group to sit down for the next young woman that walks in the door and thinks that she can't put 2 days together. Show people it works. Show people how to sit in a meeting and not talk and not text on your cell phone and look at the speaker when they talk. I love that you guys say try to stay seated during the meeting, because it's just, I've heard Johnny Harris is a speaker. He's been sober 40-something, maybe almost 50 years now. And I heard him say one time on a speaker CD that, he would ask his sponsor, why can't I go to the bathroom during the meeting? I really got to go. And his sponsor said, do you remember that one thing that you heard in AA meeting that you went, oh, and it made the total difference in your day, in your life, in your sobriety? And he said, yeah. He goes, what if somebody would have gotten up and tripped over you to go to the bathroom when that was being said? You might have missed it. And so when my girls say, why can't I go to the bathroom? Why can't I go to the bathroom? I'm like, just sit. You'll be all right. You got to pee your pants. Go before the meeting. You'll learn next time, right? But, that's just the stuff that we don't know when we get here. I didn't know it when I got here. Somebody had to tell me that stuff, I don't talk in meetings. I don't pick up my cell phone during a meeting. I don't text my friends during a meeting, Stuff I did not know. And these are like life rules. It's not just in a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. I don't do it while I'm sitting in a sales meeting at work either, But, it's just that now I go to my home group to give back. I go there, my meeting starts at 7:30, I show up at 6 o'clock, I set up the chairs, pull the tables down, and I stand there and I wait. And I wait for that new girl to come. Just to be the first one that can shake your hand and be like, welcome. It's okay. It's going to be a little overwhelming, but you can sit right here, And I go to other meetings to do the same thing. And the girls that I sponsor watch that and they go, oh, okay, that's what I do. And I swear to you, that's what makes me happy today. That's what lets me know that I can go to sleep at night, is that I did the best I could today, Doesn't mean that I'm not, I'm definitely not perfect. I still have defects that they're defects. And, they hinder me sometimes. But when the pain gets great enough, I do an inventory, and I call my sponsor. And I sit down and I say, this is what it is. What is it, And the really funny thing is that, this past year has been such a journey. I'm getting ready to, I met somebody in AA, as we all do, I think, and he has been one of the greatest gifts of my sobriety. There's been a lot of great gifts, but he's one of them. He does AA and he keeps it first, And so I do AA and I keep it first. And we both believe that if we do that, we put God's will in first, then we might just make it. And if we don't, we'll be okay, But we have an awesome relationship. I'm learning how to communicate, how to talk to people. I'm learning how to listen to that voice inside me when something's not right or something doesn't feel right. And it's just been really awesome to have that kind of relationship. I never had that kind of relationship. I would just, walk all over you and then let you walk all over me until I'd had enough, and then I'd be like, okay, leave. Don't ever talk to me again. They'd be like, what? I don't understand. Now I'm learning how to tell people, and people are learning how to tell me. And so we get to have a relationship as long as we keep AA first. So, we do that. And like I said, finances they are like my biggest problem. And I talk to God about this all the time. And I truly believe that everything's always going to be okay. But sometimes God has all the money and I want him to give it to me now. And that just doesn't happen. So I decided at the end of last year, I was offered this position for a company that made it so that I don't get a paycheck unless I sell something. And for whatever reason, I thought, okay, this is what I'm going to do. So I started with them in December, and it has been the hardest thing I have ever done in my life. But I think it's even harder than getting sober. But I've just stuck with it and put it in God's hands. And the doors keep swinging open. Not always when I want them to swing open, but they keep swinging open. And for whatever reason, it doesn't make sense. Like, mathematically, it doesn't make sense why I've been able to pay my bills from December of last year to September 25th of 2008. But God has always taken care of me. I can't explain this to you. It just works like that. And I put my heart and my soul and my blood and my sweat and my tears into AA, and I do the same for my job, and I get results, directly proportional to the work that I put in. And so, like I said, finances have been so, and so God thought it'd be funny if he made me the treasurer of 3 committees, so that I would hold on to all the money, and I don't have any of my own. So that's the other stuff that I do besides going to jails and holding a women's meeting. And I am the treasurer for my home group. I'm the treasurer for the Women's Perspective Committee or conference in November. I'm the treasurer for the There's the Solution conference that's in October. I have all this money and it's not mine, but it's funny how these things work. And I enjoy my life. As much as I talk about, there's definitely ups and downs, and there's days that I don't feel real good. I can usually get to the bottom of that and figure out what it is I need to tweak, and sometimes it's not something I need to do. Sometimes I'm doing.
Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. Sobercast is ad-free, and we'd like your help in order to keep it that way. So if you'd like to help us be self-supporting by pledging $1 or $2 a month, visit Sobercast.com and look for the donate links. Thank you very much.